hypnotize those cops. I'm not a great hypnotizer, so I could wear off any second.
You're joking. Not a smoke alarm in sight.
No smoke detectors, mate. Rule number 1. Smoke detectors.
Okay.
Okay. That's one of my favorite scenes from the movie. They get in a vampire fight and then somebody hypnotizes the cops so they can't see what's really going on. It's great. I love it. You need to watch What We Do in the Shadows, a 2014 New Zealand mockumentary horror comedy film. This will be spoiler-free as much as possible. I'm just talking about the very basic beginning and plot of this movie, so I'm not going to give anything away. So the movie starts off by informing us that every few years, a secret society gathers for a special event known as the Unholy Masquerade. And in the months leading up to the ball, a documentary film crew has been granted full access to a small group of this society. Each crew member wore a crucifix and was granted protection by the subjects of the film. And the subjects of the film are 4 flatmates in Wellington, New Zealand. We see an alarm go off at 6 o'clock, which turns out to be 6 p.m. because vampires obviously can't stay up during the day. The lid of a coffin opens up and we see a vampire slowly raise out of the coffin. This is Viago, and his job is to wake up the other vampires in the house for a flat meeting. The first one we come across is Deacon, who's hanging upside down in a closet. The next vampire is Vlad, and as Viago opens the door, it appears that there is a small orgy going on the wall. Well, he quickly closes the door, looks a little nervous, and Vlad opens the door and asks what he wants.
What time is it?
We're going to have a flat meeting in about 10 minutes.
20.
Okay, is it?
Our next stop is Petyr, who lives down in the basement behind a boulder. Petyr strongly resembles Nosfuratu, the famous vampire from the 1922 movie called Nosferatu. So apparently Petyr is fed live chickens by his housemates. Nothing bad happens to the chicken. It's an actor chicken. I'm sure everything was fine.
We're just having a flat meeting upstairs in about 10 minutes. There's a lot of stuff on the floor down here, Petyr. And it's a spinal column. Yuck. I should just bring a broom down here for you if you wanted to sweep up some of the skeletons. I don't know. Maybe.
Is Petyr coming? Shall we be wait?
Petyr's 8,000 years old. We're not going to have Petyr at the meeting. Okay, so...
What we have next is just basic, discussions about chores, who does what, who needs to do what. So there's a discussion about dishes, and Deacon apparently has not done dishes in 5 years. Vlad tells him that he is so embarrassed when he brings people over. And Deacon's like, what does it matter? You bring them over here to kill them. So basically they're arguing about basic mundane things. They have a chore wheel, all very boring stuff. They just happen to be vampires. So let's meet some of the vampires here. So first we have Viago, who we met at the very beginning. He is 379 years old. As one of the other vampires called him, he's an 18th century dandy. Then we have Deacon, who's 183. He's like the baby of the vampires. Somebody called him the bad boy, the rebellious vampire. And we have Vlad, who is 862 years old. They describe him as the older medieval vampire. They call him a perv and said that he has some very old ways of thinking, like just suggesting they get slaves. And then we have Petyr, who we've talked about earlier, the 8,000-year-old, very decrepit vampire. One of the things they mentioned at their flat meeting, which I thought was pretty funny, about the chores. Somebody praised Vlad for putting out the recycle. That's good.
And the other day, I dragged the man's body down the hallway and noticed that there was no dust. Kind of swept the hallway.
At the flat meeting, Viago mentions that they need to make sure they clean up after their feeding because there's blood everywhere. You need to put down some papers or something, put down some towels and try to soak up that stuff. Vlad mentions, I became a vampire at 16. That's why I always look 16. In those days, of course, life was tough for a 16-year-old. And Viago came to New Zealand because the love of his life, or afterlife, immigrated to New Zealand with her family. So Viago decided to immigrate or be shipped to New Zealand, and he asked his servant Philip to send him there. Well, apparently Philip put the wrong postage and the trip took 18 months. By the time he arrived to New Zealand, Catherine was already married and in love with another person. So he let her be, and he never disturbed her, but that is his long-lost love. Viago mentions that he has a locket that she gave him, which is pure silver, with her photo inside. He puts it on to show it off, but apparently vampires cannot wear silver, so he struggles.
About as long as I can wear that.
One thing they mention is they have no reflection, so they have to give each other feedback on their appearance, which they all dress pretty much in dated clothing. But as Viago mentions, you know, sometimes you find a victim and you think, hey, those are nice pants. So you get a new wardrobe right there. We are told there are 60 to 70 vampires in the Wellington area, and they cannot go in any place unless they are invited. We meet Deacon's familiar, Jackie. She's pretty much their gopher and does whatever they tell her to do. And they have a deal that she will eventually become immortal. She will become a vampire. Deacon seems to be putting it off a little bit. He always comes up with excuses, but she's waiting. So her next task is to gather virgins for them. And she does mention it's been 4.5 years and she's becoming impatient, but she's doing what she can to become this vampire that she's training to be. So next we see Viago talking to a woman sitting on the couch in the house. He sets down some newspapers on the floor and he has a stack of towels, so this is probably his next victim. So they talk for a minute and she talks about how she wants to travel and what she wants for the future. You can tell this makes him uncomfortable because he knows what he's going to do and he's just like, okay. Well, apparently he's not very good at this whole vampire thing. He hit the main artery and blood is shooting everywhere. And he says, on the upside, I think she had a really good time. So Jackie brings a man and a woman named Nick and Josephine to dinner. The virgins. Only they find out actually they're not virgins, but they go along with the plan anyway. Deacon mentions, I think we drink virgin blood because it sounds cool. So at dinner, Viago comes out with a couple cans of looks like canned spaghetti and just plops it into the humans' plates.
Please, Nick, eat some biscotti. I didn't realize you enjoyed eating worms, Nick.
No.
They are worms. We stole that idea from the Lost Boys.
Deacon explains that he tricks people into thinking they're eating worms a la Lost Boys, but he adds he puts a twist on it by making a man also think that he has a snake down there. At that point, Nick is like, that's it, I'm out. And he tries to leave. So he's searching the house, trying to find a way out. All the doors are locked, all the windows are locked. He actually looks out the second-story balcony and sees Jackie leaving in her car, kind of like, sorry, Nick. And so he's trying to find another way out. As Nick is running down the hallway, he's attacked by a flying bat, which I assume is one of the vampires. One of the scenes that is just so ridiculously funny to me because I have a really stupid sense of humor is when Nick is running, there is a cat sitting there, you're hearing it just yowling, and it has the face of Vlad over the cat's face. So Nick finally escapes, runs out of the house, and is tackled by Petyr. And they're like, oh, Petyr got him, oh, poor guy. So apparently the fate with Petyr is worse than being killed by these guys. I think you'll like this movie. It really has a dry sense of humor. It's very quirky. It has these totally awkward vampires that just don't seem to do vampire very well. Well, at least Viago doesn't. He's just kind of he's trying his best. We learn a few things. We learn that there is a feud between the werewolves and vampires. They come across a pack of werewolves in their human form, and they kind of pick on each other a little bit. Vampire tosses a stick, and one of the werewolves turn around and try to run, like, no, don't do that. One of my favorite scenes is when there's this discussion going on. One of the werewolves keeps swearing, and one of the other werewolves says, are we swearwolves? No, we're werewolves. So he doesn't like the swearing. So these vampires finally get an official invitation to the masquerade, where there'll be vampires, banshees, zombies, all the undead. They also learn that someone called the Beast will make a special appearance as the guest of honor. And it just so happens the Beast is Vlad's arch nemesis. This is a great movie. It's hilarious. I love it. I think you'll love it, even if you don't like horror movies. But if you like horror movies and comedy, this will be the perfect combination for you. I personally love it. And there is a series based off of this movie also called What We Do in the Shadows. I've only been able to see a few episodes of it, and I love it. I think it's great. It follows the same vein of comedy as the movie, and that's my next task right there, is to watch the series. So I appreciate you watching my video. I hope you get to watch the series and the movie as well. And if you do, let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.